And happy Sunday. I hope you all had a fabulous weekend and you're still enjoying your weekend. It's family day, so you have a nice day off tomorrow. Um, I am looking forward to seeing what we produce in class this week. And I'm just going to take you through all of the content that you need to be successful for this week, including going through a visual slide deck, as well as the expectations of the project that you'll be doing. By now, so we've done 2 weeks of e-learning, and in an e-learning classroom, there's a lot of kind of people coming in and people coming out within the first 2 weeks. So by now, you should be oriented fully to the course. You should have submit discussions, assignments already. And you'll now start to see that I'll be giving feedback to those assignments now that the course is settled and I have all my students in the class. Okay, so we are moving into our third week of the course, and by now, my expectations are that you are in the class every day, that you're doing your work, that you're staying organized, and that you're meeting the deadlines. Okay, now that we're in our third week, the good news is we only have to complete one participation activity for the whole week instead of one every single day. So, this participation activity is really important. You can do it at any point during the week up until Monday at 8 a.m., and that is your attendance for the entire week. If you don't do it, it means you are marked absent for the entire week. So, it's something you really want to make sure that you do. Okay. So the participation activity for our week rate is right here at the top of our weekly breakdown. So you might just want to get that done and get that over with right away. As I've explained here, we're going to be doing our first project this week. Projects in this course are weighted more than assignments. So for example, you've done some journal entries. Those journal entries are weighted usually about 2% of your overall mark, whereas a project is usually about 7 to 8%. You want to make sure you do everything because if you don't hand in a couple of assignments, that's going to mean that you don't get 4% of your overall mark. The maximum mark you can get in this course is 96%. But when it comes to projects and tests, you definitely want to maximize the amount of energy you put into them because they are worth more. This particular project is worth about 5% of your overall grade. So again, it's important that you show me your best work. With that being said, this project is designed to actually also give me a chance to get to know you as a presenter and as someone who is just to see the effort that you put into something. Okay. It's also to honor Black History Month. So we are at the end of Black History Month now, being February. And there's a lot to actually unpack as it pertains to representation in business leadership when it comes to diversity in general. And we will touch on that a lot in this course as it pertains to women in leadership and just different minority groups. But because it's Black History Month, it's important that we do spend some time focusing on that. So we've got a pretty cool project for you to work on, and I'm excited to see what you have to do. So for you to be successful on this project, there's a lot of things you have to do up front this week. So the very first thing is to go through this slide deck. This is a lesson that I put together for you. It's linked in right here. Sorry, it's not linked in right here. That's the project. This is the lesson, right? It's linked in right here. It's a slide deck. So I'm just going to go through this with you now because it's important that you know, again, normally I would just teach in front of the class, but I'm not able to do that in this space. So just want to guide you through this lesson. Anytime you're given a slide deck, it is important that you take notes on it and that you make sure that you're following all of the content that's in the lesson. So I'm just going to show you and guide you as to what you need to do for this lesson. So the lesson is broken down into a number of different slides, obviously, that gives you a bit of context as to the topic itself. Okay, so I introduced the concept of racialization in our first slide, looking at the idea that races biologically are actually they're socially constructed. Biologically, humans actually are 99.9% alike. Races really don't exist. Sure, we have different skin tones, but when you look at our DNA, 99.9% of us is exactly the same. So what we're talking about here is when you look at the history of human racism and marginalization, really that's socially constructed, meaning that humans are the ones that actually create racism. Racialization is that process. It's where humans over time deem other humans as unworthy based on a number of different criteria. Of course, in this case, we're talking about skin tone, but there's a lot of other ways that we do that across history and humanity. Okay, so I go through a number of slides here where I kind of just introduce some terminologies. We look at racism, we look at the concept of systemic racism. And systemic racism is because racism exists, because we socially construct racism. As a result of that, we have systems in place now that actually favor majority groups versus minority groups. And those systems continue to oppress minorities. So we continue to oppress Black people in the case of Black History Month. And there's ways that we do this that are unconscious and very difficult to see, but definitely exist. We typically see them in laws, among other, political spheres. And I'm going through a number of examples in this slide deck to really show you that. Okay, so there are a number of videos in this slide deck that I want you to watch. These videos will add context. They'll help you understand a little more in depth what we're talking about. So please watch any video. So for example, here's a video. And then I also go through a number of stats, facts, and figures for you to actually look at that will prove systemic racism exists today and sort of how that actually, what the implications of that are. Okay. So, for example, when you're looking at even something, again, this is a nuanced version of systemic racism. When you look at maternal death rates, and this is information out of the UK, but actually it's very similar across all Western countries. Black women die much more frequently in childbirth than any woman of any other representation. And this is just, again, because our systems are biased and Black women are treated differently when it comes to maternal health. And then moving through the evidence here, we have a whole list of different pieces of evidence for you as well. That's really intriguing and something that I just want you to think about as you go through and navigate this slide deck. Of course, we're also going to highlight representation of Black people in business. So CEOs, something that you should know as business leadership students, are chief executive officers. And there are, and the Fortune 500 list are the top 500 most wealthiest and successful companies in the world. And when you look at the number of Black CEOs that are on the Fortune 500 list, there are actually only five. That's just it. Okay. So when you look at this systemically, we know that this is a problem because if we don't have representation in the highest power of our, governing bodies and politics and business, then we know we're not seeing what, needs being met across the whole. Okay. So again, thinking about why is this a problem? Here's some more facts for you as well. So going through this slide deck, I want you to also acknowledge that anytime we have this sort of little blue tone here, this is actually an article that's been linked in for you. So I'd ask for you to click on this article and read it. My internet's being painfully slow right now, but there's more information within the articles. Anytime you're given an article in a slide deck, I do ask that you take notes on it as well, because we'll be using this information in the future. It could be on a test as well. And then there's also another article here on slide 12. Again, sorry, my internet is painfully slow today. If you click on that, you'll see there's also more information there on representation in media for Black people. Okay, and then I go through a number of different examples as to what that looks like, again, to contextualize your learning. Okay, so go through that as well. All right. Then what I want you to do is read up a little bit on an amazing Canadian artist. He's a rapper, hip hopper. His name is Shad. LinkedIn here is also his biography. You don't need to take notes on this, but it's just interesting. And again, it's pivoting us into our project. And then I'd like you to also watch his music video for this song that he wrote called Brother Watching. And then what I've done is I've kind of compiled some answers to a discussion that I would probably have in class live as to what the purpose of this song is. And then ultimately, answering a little bit to the Black experience in Canada. So the question is, with all of this information, if you've looked through this slide deck and you've looked at the statistics, obviously we can see that there's, major issues when it comes to equity in Black leadership. So the question is, what can we do? So for your project this week, you are going to be amplifying Black business, and you're going to look locally for that. So it should be pretty interesting. So really it's really important as business leadership students that we look at how we can amplify equity issues, so that we can change those systems. We can start seeing wider representation in leadership, moving forward. So that's really what the premise of this assignment is. And I could do a lot more of that throughout the course, but of course we don't have that much time, unfortunately. So I hope you enjoy this. Most students really enjoy getting into this kind of stuff. Okay, so your task for this week is kind of fun. I'm excited to see what you come up with. You're going to select a Canadian, it has to be Canadian, a Canadian Black business or entrepreneur. So someone owned a business that is owned by a Black individual. And I've actually included a local directory for you here of a place to start. It's awesome. It kind of it allows you to kind of search according to region. So if you wanted to find a business owned by a Black person in Burlington or in Milton or in Oakville, it's all there. And then you can choose whichever company you find is really interesting. So choose something that looks cool to you. And or you can choose an artist. So I said, please don't use Shad because we used him in the example in the actual lesson. But there are amazing artists out there, and any artist owns their own business. Essentially, their art is their business. So again, you can kind of explore different angles of this. Once you have your entrepreneur, your business, I'd like you to sign up here. Every student should have a different profile. So again, you want to kind of get on this, choose something that you're interested in, and make sure that there's no other student choosing that particular business. And then you're going to research this business and this entrepreneur in depth. You're going to create a bibliography page for the research that you produce. And that bibliography does have to be in Chicago style. So again, all of that information was given to you last week. Make sure that you review it. And obviously, if you don't, that's where it will show. It's all available to you under content in a folder called Chicago Citations. And there's a video lesson that I take you through. If you haven't seen that, you've missed something. So make sure that you go through it. And then you're going to amplify what you've learned. You're going to create a presentation promoting your business. This is going to be video recorded. I'm the only one that's going to see it. But I want you to think about dynamic ways of doing this. So your voice has to be in the presentation. You do not need to be physically in the presentation, but you can be. Or it could just be your voice and visuals. Okay. You should use visuals. This has to be dynamic. I want you to think of it like an advertisement. So you're trying to promote this business to me so that I feel compelled to go and check it out. Because again, especially if it's locally, or if it's an artist or whomever, I might feel compelled after seeing your advertisement to go and actually check this artist out or this business out. Okay. So your video should not be more than 2 to 3 minutes. And you have to find a way to get the most important information out in a short period of time and in a dynamic way. Your goal is to convince us to go check this business out. Okay. The purpose of this assignment is, again, to promote this business or this talent so that other people can be made aware, shop locally, shop Canadian, support Canadian business, support Canadian artists, but also support Canadian diversity at the same time and amplify those minority voices. Okay. Again, I'm also going to be looking to ensure that your presentation is dynamic. You are business leadership students. So your vocal energy, how you talk, how professional you are, make sure that you've practiced your presentation, that you're not just reading something, because that always comes through, even on video, even if you're just doing a voiceover. Okay. Making sure that you're really rehearsed and that the presentation is fun to watch. Okay. So what to include in the presentation: who owns the business, any important information about the business, what did they sell, give specific examples, where is it located, and how can we access this, the products or the art or whatever, the business itself, and then anything interesting. Make it dynamic and visual and exciting. And I always have students, especially in my e-learning course, that want to go big and really want to get an incredible mark in this course. And there are students that do. I'm talking like very high marks. If that's you, you might want to try an extension. You might want to go even bigger and choose something locally and actually go check it out. Take pictures of the storefront. Maybe introduce yourself to the owner. Learn a little bit more about the business. You know, it's a local company. Check it out yourself and incorporate that into your actual presentation. It's something that you can do. It's not required at all. Of course, we are in a pandemic, so there's no pressure. But you can also send an email, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But it's definitely something that's considered extra, an extension, and something that I would see as pretty cool. Okay. So everything's available for you in Dropbox. The rubric is also more extensive in Dropbox to see how you will be assessed. But otherwise, I think this video should summarize that. Again, with your week ahead, you want to make sure that you go through that slide deck, watch all the videos, make sure that you take notes and that you have a good idea of what the lesson entails. You're going to sign up your topic here as soon as you have it. Make sure that no other students have selected your entrepreneur or your business. And then this is what you're going to work on all week. This is it. One singular task, okay? But it's an important one. And it will be due on a Monday at 8 a.m., no later, okay? If you have any questions, I'm here for you. Just send me an email and I will get back to you within 24 hours. I hope you have a fantastic week and I will see you online.